Welcome to Greenkeeper app. Greenkeeper is a decision support tool that has been designed for turfgrass professionals. That could be golf, that could be sports turf, that could be landscape and lawn management, and even sod production. My name is Dr. Bill Kreiser. I've been working on this tool since 2015, and it's a way to integrate some of the models that I've been building during my research in turfgrass dating back to 2007. And it since has grown and expanded. And so there's a lot of features in here. And through these series of videos, we are going to discuss all of those features, how we use them, how we can better make decisions as a result of what we're seeing from this app, and ultimately hopefully make your job a little bit easier. So the first thing to know is Greenkeeper app is a web-based application. That means it runs on your computer, on your internet browser, or it can also run on your phone's browser. It's not something that you would download in an app store. One of the benefits of having it run this way is that we can allow Greenkeeper accounts to be linked to multiple users. So you go to greenkeeperapp.com on your internet browser, and you'll come to this page, this initial marketing page. You can scroll down and see some information about the app. We have some other pages on the marketing side. There's a sensors page that links to different sensors that we currently integrate with our Greenkeeper. We have our university page that lists all of the different course offerings that we have in Greenkeeper University. There's a blog with lots of good information, and then a solutions page for if you're looking for some individualized help and support from our experts. You can reach out for some consulting services. But ultimately today we're going to focus mainly on the app. So we're going to go to the register page. So to make an account, it's pretty simple. You just type in your information, and I will use our help email. And so if you are ever needing help, that's a great way to reach us. And so help@greenkeeperapp.com. It then gets shared across the team. And so if you have any customer support, or you're stuck on something, or have billing questions, that's the email we would suggest you reach out to. And then just set in a password twice. So let me get this in here. And then we did need to add reCAPTCHA in here. This just proves that you're a real person. That sounds crazy, but we actually had some bot that was making fake accounts for us, so that had to get added in. It's going to ask you if you want to save your password. I would definitely do that. And then you're going to come to the login page. You might think nothing has happened, but in actuality it did. The reason we go to this page first is then you can click Remember Me. And so by clicking Remember Me, when you go to greenkeeperapp.com, you're no longer going to have to log in. You'll no longer see the marketing page. You'll direct right to the app. If you did forget your password, click the Forgot Password button, and then a temporary password will be generated and sent to your email to log in. So let's go. So the first time you log into Greenkeeper, it isn't the most... there's not a lot to see because we need to get the course set up. And this is one of the most important parts, and unfortunately it has to be one of the first things. So you're new to the app and you have to go through how to get the course set up. We are currently working on a version 2 of Greenkeeper, and it's going to help guide you through this process. But for this video, this is talking about what you need to do right now to set up your course for this coming growing season. So the first thing we're going to do is click the My Course button. This is the page that sets all of your different preferences. There are a series of what's called hopscotch tours that occur on some pages, and so if you're new and you get lost, you can always push yes, take a tour, but because I'm walking through it today, we're going to skip the tour. If you do need to review that tour, if you see the little question mark on the top here, that will restart those tours of the page. A couple things to notice then. So first you have your name, first, last, and the email. This is the email that you log in. If you change this email on this page, you need to then log in with whatever you change your email to be. So if you do decide to change your email address and you update it here, note that your login email will also change. And so one of the habits we need to get into right away is whenever we change information, make sure you push the save button. That forces the system to make sure that things are logged. Another important thing on that first time is check your preferences. So there's two different units of preferences here. You have general and you have weather. In general, you can have imperial or US units, metric units, or both, and it defaults to both. But if you don't use metric, then you can get rid of it. These are units for things like labeled rates. So ounces per 1,000 square feet versus, say, milliliters per 100 square meters or milliliters per hectare. So if you don't care about metric units, get rid of them there. The reason you can choose both is some people work in both units. Like I know our friends in Canada like to use both units a lot of times, and so they can have that option there. And then you have your weather unit, and this is a one or the other. Either it's metric or it's imperial. You can switch those whenever you want. In the background, we store all our data in metric, and so if you pick imperial, when you go to the site, it just shows you the units in Fahrenheit, for example, in inches instead of millimeters. But everything that we store is in the metric side, so this is purely from a display option. Then also on the preferences page, we'll talk about later, but this is where you can adjust some of the displays on your home page. So if, for example, you don't care about your first spring annual applications, this would be things like proxy applications or which herbicide, you can deselect that switch and then they will disappear from your homepage, or you can turn them back on. So now we're going to come and start entering in our course. So we're going to call this, we'll call this Greenkeeper National, it's our golf course. And then we pick our course type. And so this isn't that important for the golf turf. You say public course, private course. If you're a sports turf setting, if you're a commercial turf, other. If you're a researcher, you're a consultant, I would encourage you to do this other. And then if you're a homeowner, to click the homeowner tab, so we get some distinction here of which user you are. So we're going to pretend that we're a public golf course with 18 holes. Then we'll come in and put our zip code. So I'm going to put in a zip code here for Lincoln. And when I do that, you're going to notice that the map changed. And so we're going to skip the SPIO key for now. This is something we'll talk about later, so it's okay to leave that blank. But you'll notice now that when I put in the zip code and clicked off of here, then my location updated on the map. And so we're going to use Holmes Lake Park Golf Course here as our example. And so let's imagine that our fake course is here. I'm going to click that spot on the map, and now it's going to be pulling weather data from this location, and I'm going to push save. And so now we've saved that. The information is set for the course. The members tab then is the next thing that you would do, and you could add more people to Greenkeeper. Ultimately, you just put their email in, push add user, and go from there. And we'll talk about different member distinctions later on, but this is where you would add those different members. And then we get to the next most important thing on this page, and that is setting our areas. And so what are areas? Areas are management units. So that would be like your greens or your fairways or your tees or your rough. Those are what are area distinctions. And so that's an important thing to keep in mind. When you're setting up these areas, they should really be a representation of how you normally manage an area. For example, if you treat the back 9 greens and the front 9 greens differently from each other, then you might from all your sprays, then you might want to have back 9 greens versus front 9 greens. But if you always just spray all of your greens at the same time, and occasionally you might skip a green, or you might spray the clubhouse lawn with a green spray application, something like that, log it as one application, because there are ways in the system that you can tweak that. And so let's come and make our first area, and we'll just call it greens, because that's what it's called. You can call it anything you want. Then you have to pick area type, and you might think this is redundant. I just called it greens. Why is it saying greens, tees, fairways, athletic field, water feature, rough? If you're a lawn user too, use roughs. That would be representative. But why do I need to know this? Because all of our PGR models and all those types of models in the background need to know roughly how do you manage these areas. So it knows if you call something greens, the grass is probably about 1/8 of an inch high. It's probably being mowed every single day. Whereas tees and fairways are probably somewhere between 1/2 of an inch and an inch, but maybe even as low as 1/4 of an inch or less, and maybe even a little higher than an inch, inch and a quarter. That's fine. And then roughs are kind of, 1.5 inch or greater. So just know that distinction. And then you can come in and you pick your grass species. And there's a whole different types of grass, of individual species like bentgrass, but then we also have things like mixed bentgrass annual bluegrass. And then we have general just mixed cool season grasses or mixed warm season grasses. So those are all the different grasses that we can choose from. So in this example, we're going to do bentgrass greens. Finally, it's going to say what soil type, and this is becoming more important in the future. But again, they're kind of rough categories. We have native soil, which is, but then coarse texture. That would be people that are growing grass in very sandy regions like Pinehurst type soils or the sandhills in Nebraska. Then you have your native soil, but fine texture. These are your clays and your silts and your loams. It's like I have here in eastern Nebraska. We have our sand modified native soil. These are your push-ups. So you had native soil, and then over the years you've been sand top dressing and aerating and filling the holes with sand. You have your pure sand based, and then if it's a water feature to track, say, applications to ponds, you'd push water. So we're going to do sand based. Another important thing now we're going to get to is the size. And let's say my greens are right at 3 acres. I can do acres or square feet. And again, if I'm metric, you're going to see hectares and square meters as an option too. This is how much do you actually spray. It's not the square footage to the nearest, square foot. It's when I mix up my sprayer, I mix the spray 3 acres. So that's how you want to think about this. We get into these challenges sometimes, and this is a legit question, and that is, what do I do with if I sometimes spray my greens and my approaches, and then other times I spray just the approaches, or I spray the approaches with the fairways? This is a gray area that is a little bit challenging for us to code. And so what I would say there again is, think about what do you do most of the time. If you always spray your approaches with your greens, add that square footage in, because there's a way you can take it off when you're making the application. But if it's just an occasional thing, like I'm going to spray greens, usually just greens and collars plus some overspray, but then I'm going to go grab the approaches today, then there are ways that we can account for it. So really keep that in mind when you're figuring out how big to add your areas. So we're going to push save. And we'll do this now. We'll add a couple different areas. We'll do some tees. So we have fairways, and maybe we'll say that this is a mix of bentgrass, annual bluegrass. It's a native soil, fine textured, and maybe I have 30 acres of that. And let's come in and let's add some tees just so we have 3 different areas. And let's say that these are Kentucky bluegrass. We'll say push up. And for this one, maybe we'll do 150,000 square feet. A note when entering numbers, don't use commas. You need to just keep them in the full number format. And so 150,000 and push save. So you can do that, add all your different areas. Again, thinking about how do you generally spray those areas. The last distinction here is holes. And I'll do a tutorial on how to add holes. Adding a hole gives specific location. So if an area is a management unit, a hole is an actual geographic location that I can go put a GPS location on. It's really important right now, if you're going to be tracking clipping volume with Greenkeeper, we need to know the exact sizes of the individual putting greens. And so when we go through Performance Tracker, we will go through holes and I will show you how to do that. But for now, we're just going to skip adding holes, knowing that this is where you go to do that. So let's go back to the Areas tab. and it's going to go to adding our first sprayer.